Welcome to the journey, and today's journey, our guest came across the podcast as they watched the recent episode of What I Had with a guest, Darren. Darren, as you remember, is I think talking about cars, and this is just an excellent way of segueing into many things because guests like to come to me when they have a story, and it's not automatically through channels that I am linked on. It's sometimes that they hear them on a podcast that they've been involved with. And I always say, if you've got a journey to share, share it. So our guest today is about, yeah, it does say about previous guests, this love for cars and automobiles. And our guest wanted to introduce themselves about writing fantasy novels that get kids and teens reading again. And their first novel, The Jewels of Fate, was published right before the start of their grade 12 year of high school. In August 2022, the second book in the series hit number 8 in the contemporary fantasy category on Amazon during its launch week. So we're going to have a conversation today with Tyler about being a young entrepreneur and publishing a novel as a teenager, and about the many skills he learnt along the way. So I welcome Tyler to the journey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome. Now, I touch upon your writing as an early age. You was a young adult per se. Did you ever feel like you had the passion when you was younger to be a writer, or was there something else that inspired you?
Yes. So I wanted to write since I was 7 years old. I published my first novel, The Jewels of Fate. I have a copy right here, when I was 17. So it was about a 10-year journey from the point where I knew I wanted to be a writer to an actually published novel. And then a few years after that, I came out with my second one. But this has been in the works for a long time. And um, the only other career that I've ever wanted to be was a mailman when I was really, really young, which I got to live my mailman dreams when I had a paper out in my grade school years. But other than that, all I wanted to do was be a writer, and I've known that since a really young age.
And obviously, when you are growing up, because you took such an interest in writing, was there any famous authors that you inspired by reading their novels over and over again?
Oh, so many, so many. I have a very long list, so I'll keep it brief. Harry Potter for sure. Super inspired by not just the story of Harry Potter and just how it's a great example of storytelling and plot structure and characterization and world building, but also the author's journey as a whole. I'm not sure how much your audience is familiar with J.K. Rowling, but just
Well,
her
I think majorly most people
majorly
will know.
for sure. She's pretty well known. But her journey of uh, publishing the first novel when she was a nobody to now what the Harry Potter empire is today is just remarkable, and inspiring in itself. So Harry Potter is definitely one. Percy Jackson is another one. Whenever I talk about my books, I refer to them as similar to Percy Jackson because they're in the same tone, same audience range. They're that 12 to 18 teen, young adult fantasy. Um, so I constantly refer to Percy Jackson as well. And then, of course, there are the other series that I grew up reading, Hunger Games, Maze Runner, the Divergent series, so many others.
Yeah, and you talked about those, Hunger Games and books like that. It's just a fantasy element of many things. Now,
Hmm.
there was another author, not saying, he's teen based, but he has written teen books, if I remember in certain books. R.L. Stein. Now, he
Yes.
wrote a,
Goosebumps, I believe.
yes, Goosebumps,
Hmm.
fantasy, but it was just
Yes.
written in such a fun way that was engaging. And I know for a fact that he did write in another collection of books back in the day called Point Horrors.
Hmm.
And that was, just him as a cat, author. He'd like that suggestion of, being a horror-based writer, but he did it in such a way that it wasn't meant to scare people, it's educating them at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, his books, and they've been picked up by Disney to make that series on Disney Plus, and yeah, great storyteller there too. I didn't grow up reading R.L. Stine. I'm not much of a scary horror guy,
I'm a
although
multi-genre, that's why I
okay,
speak about.
okay, that makes sense. Although I did see the movie with Jack Black in it, where he plays R.L. Stine in the Goosebumps movie, and I thought that was pretty good.
And Jack Black is the sort of person that you can epitomize what R.L. Stein
Yes,
looks like.
exactly, exactly.
And having met him, in 2018, he is as goofy and funny and eclectic as he is on screen.
Mhm.
But so going, you was talking about one of your aspirations being J.K. Rowling. Have you ever been on a journey like J.K. was, where she was on a train and she was going from London up to Scotland, I believe, and just being able to create a story in that short space of time? I think I forgot how many hours train journey it is because it's the old
Mhm.
trains, but I think it's like 3, 4 hours. Have you ever been on a journey before where you felt inspired by things around you to create your books?
Oh, absolutely. And I always say my best ideas come at the worst times when I'm not at my desk with a pen and paper nearby. So yes, although it's never happened on a train, I've actually only ridden on a train once in my life before. And I wasn't working on a story at the time, so I can't relate to her story in that way. But for sure, inspiration strikes in the oddest places, and I think when we are immersed in the world and in culture, whether that be out in nature on a walk or walking down the street or at a coffee shop or whatever it is, that's when the ideas and creativity comes, at least in my experience. So my challenge is then taking those ideas and trying to figure out a way to, get them on paper before they disappear.
Mm. And you talk about it in your bio about, being a young entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
yeah, you was only a teenager when you first released the novel. So that was a big mindset to set, because most teenagers, I'm not saying all teenagers, but most teenagers, they wouldn't be seen behind a book because they were like, what's a book? Or why am I doing this? They want to be doing adult things before they're an adult. You was doing an adult thing before your time, but you was putting it to good use by writing about a book and publishing it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Did,
So
did
I,
you
I was
did you often felt peer pressure because you was the odd one out by doing what you did, or did you feel like you had the support of others around you?
absolutely, absolutely. It wasn't until actually that my first book was published that I found that community of other authors. To be honest, I didn't think there was that many of us in the area where I live. So I'm from Niagara Region, Ontario, in southern Ontario, Canada. And we're not like a New York or a Los Angeles or a San Francisco or a London, England, where all of these big cities are that are known to be very art focused, and a lot of these major artists and musicians and all these celebrities come from. I'm not from an area like that at all. So growing up, I didn't think that there was that many writers around me. And then when I finally published my novel and I started marketing it, I actually, did meet these other local writers and realized there's a lot more than I thought. So I was able to get plugged into community then. But growing up during the writing process over the 5 years that the Jewels of Fate was written, absolutely I felt the peer pressure that I was kind of out on my own, that I was different from all of my friends, that they didn't understand what I was doing, why I was spending so much time on this project.
And they just felt like, come with us, why aren't you with us? That kind of feeling.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And I've been in that sort of situation. I've written poetry before. And, if you're in the connection of knowing poets, you're fine. But when you first start out, you're by yourself. And then you do shut yourself away from people because that is your creative side kicking in because you have to have that focus. If you have anyone come in, unless they are in your inner circle, it'll distract you.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you don't need that as an author or poet.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's just dealing with criticism, right? And
Mm,
understanding where it's coming from.
yeah. So obviously you write fantasy novels. Have you ever gone into the aspect of trying to go for another genre, or are you just happy with the fantasy?
I've thought about other genres. I haven't written in them yet, other than the short stories that I keep in my drawer that I don't let anyone see. Back when I was just practicing and learning my craft. But in terms of novels that I want to publish, I've only thought of fantasy at this point. I don't know. So this third book that I'm currently working on, is the end of my trilogy. So I have two books out right now, and then this third one will end the series. Beyond that, I don't know what I'm going to write, or what genre it will be in. It could be fantasy, could be something else. I'm not super definitive on that at this point.
Yeah, that is good because obviously, if you do look at the other aspect of genres, it's about exploring the unknown, and I like that because obviously journeys are about doing the unknown, and when you do go out, how often do you use your map system on your car? It's that kind of feeling. Some people
Mhm.
are reliant on it and they're predetermined where they're going, or they just go in blind.
Oh, absolutely.
So if
Um,
you're going in there blind with a new idea, it might be a good thing for you, but you might also look into it and say, if I go in blind, I might need assistance from it.
for sure, for sure. And it's also important to think about that issue from the perspective of the readers too, because I've heard from authors that it's not good to genre jump, which basically means if you write in fantasy, then all of a sudden you're moving to romance, or you write in Western, and all of a sudden you're writing a sci-fi.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, authors do, they write in multiple genres, but if your audience gets attached to one genre and they expect that from you, it can feel abrupt if you all of a sudden switch gears.
Yeah. And you touch upon, like I said, your inspirations. They stuck to the same formula for so many books.
Mhm.
So that's what made them popular because they stuck with what they were happy with and familiar with.
Exactly.
So obviously you give awful presentation to schools and speak at numerous conferences and summits, and you are also a screenwriter. Now, screenwriter is away from what you do as an author, but do you feel like how you present yourself when you go into schools? Do you feel like you're presenting yourself as you, or do you feel like you have to say to people, this is who I am, but you don't have to be me, be yourself?
That's an interesting question. And it depends on um, what audience I'm talking to. So my presentations are different for each grade level. I would say all of them have that motivational piece that encourages them to pursue what they want. Um, but some presentations are more motivational, whereas some presentations are more tactical, where it's here's are the things I did to, build out my marketing plan for my books, or grow my business off of my book, or that kind of thing, where it's more technical step by step. So in that case, I would say it's less of more about like be yourself. Of course, I'm always talking about that because I think it's important. Authenticity, is how you connect with your audience when you do be yourself. But I feel like I talk about that more in my motivational presentations, which are usually more for the younger grades. It's
Mm.
when I get to the high school that it's more the theory and the practicality of writing, and the step by step kind of here's what you do, mapping it out.
And that gives them, when you do it in such a way, like you said, age is the factor because you can't just talk eye level expectations to a 6-year-old, 7-year-old compared to a
Exactly.
15, 16, 17-year-old. It's just different ways of
For
adapting.
sure. For sure. So I'll give you an example of that. My 3-4 presentation, grades 3 and 4, who I talk to, it's mostly on the importance of reading. And there is some theory in that, but it is more about the undertone is find the books you like to read because reading is important, and here's why. And yeah. reading the bottom line of that presentation is reading can teach you about life just as much as it can teach you about books or writing if you want to be an author. So that's kind of an example of the 3-4 presentation, and they love it. And I make it very interactive, and there's games. But if I'm talking to a grade 9 audience, I have a presentation for them about world building. And this is more of a deep dive into series like Harry Potter, or the Throne of Glass series or Percy Jackson, or countless other series that I use an example. And I kind of break it down a little bit, and I use examples from my own books as well. But it's more about what makes a world good. And here are the practical, tactical things that you can do to build an engaging fictional world. But at that level, a grade 4 is not going to understand that type of content.
Mm,
And if you flip it, a grade 9 or 10 is not going to be as interested in a topic about the importance of reading
yeah.
that's geared towards a grade 3, 4. So it is widely different, and you got to know what audience you're speaking to.
Yeah, and so obviously, people will be wanting to get in contact, and you do say about getting contact in your book.
Mhm.
Can you share your website and what people can expect from seeing on your website when they get in contact?
Absolutely. So my website is snurestories.com. So my name, Snure, and then the word stories.com. Um, I'm not sure if there's going to be a link somewhere on this
It'll be in
page
the
where you see
description.
link in the description. Okay, awesome. So it'll be there. So if you click to my website, you will find more information about my books. So like I mentioned before, it is a fiction teen fantasy series. The premise of the Jewels of Hate series is about a boy who gets pulled to this mysterious world called Echinacea, and he has to carry out a secret request given to him by the queen. And if you want to know what that secret request is, you're going to have to read the books.
Good
Um,
tease, good tease.
yeah, it's a little tease there. It's a little tease. But you can find more information and a bit more in-depth synopsis about them on my website, as well as the link to where to purchase them. They are available online on Amazon. I've also got many resources and different blogs on my website that go over things like world building or how to build great characters or just the writing process or my experience as a writer. All of that can be found on my website. Other interviews. So at some point, this interview that you're listening to right
Mm.
now will make its way somewhere on my website when it's released.
It will be
Um,
released, and I will either send you the actual copy or you can actually have the link, whichever one you want.
for sure, for sure. So at some point, you'll be able to listen to this particular podcast episode on my website, as well as all the other podcasts and speaking engagements I've been featured at. Um, Yes. So that's all on my website. And
Okay,
then and
cool.
then I have my social media where you can follow me at Snure Stories. Same thing, it's my name, Snure, and then stories. Yes.
Okay, so the last question I always like to ask, because I like how this is compact and it's a nice, easy, compact interview because we condensed it in such a way. People are inspired by writing. We know that, even if you're young or even older. What would you say to them to help them on their journey to success?
I would say it's you will encounter challenges along the way for sure. Uh, so first off, it's important to have a community around you, kind of like we were talking about earlier. Um, Whether you are a fellow writer, or maybe you are in sports, or you're an actor, or a musician, or whatever you are doing, it's so important to have community. But it's also so important to keep going, because it is a long game, and if you keep going, you will eventually get there. And it wouldn't be a journey if it didn't take time. Um, I don't think, I've never
Mm,
heard of someone calling a journey, 3 hours. Like I don't find that's a journey. When I think of journey, I think of 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 30 years, whatever it may be.
yeah, it's like I traveled 3,500 miles to be in America.
Exactly.
That's a journey.
Hmm.
Me learning in life, that's a journey, but that
Hmm.
doesn't involve distance. That's just a mental journey in myself. But on that, I'd like to say, Tyler, thank you for sharing your journey with us. We compacted everything into a nice compact podcast because, it doesn't have to be long. Some podcasts can be, but this is just the right amount, I would say. But thank you for sharing your journey, and I'll make sure the link is in the description after I upload it.
For sure, for sure. Yes, I would love to connect with you. I also have a free resource that I would love to give anyone listening to this podcast. It's a 20-minute reader jumpstart session for parents. If you have a reader, or sorry, a non-reader in your home who you just can't get to read no matter how hard you try, I'd love to offer a 20-minute quick in-depth workshop, personalized, where I help you map out a reading plan for the next 3 months for your non-reader. So anyone listening to this call who's interested in that, I would love to connect with you on that. And of course, there will be a link to that in the description as well.
And I'll make sure you send that to me in the email, because you didn't send that to me in the link. So you can send that to me in the link.
For sure. I will absolutely do that.
All right, but thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Tyler. Thanks to our guest there for a wonderful journey. And now a couple of messages to share with you.
Hello, I am Amy Harrison. I'm the author of the book Feline Warrior Part 1 and Part 2, a fictional story that is written in a poetic format that is based on real-life events that could happen to anyone and intended only for relatable purposes. This story claws into Catgirl's past abuse. Catgirl is human and part feline, but truly a warrior who can handle anything because she is strong and fierce. She has been taken advantage of for far too long. Join her on her journey as she reaches freedom. Here are some poems from Feline Warrior. Tears flow. I no longer know what to do. I am no longer who I once was, and it is because I made a choice to use my voice, and that is okay, because what I had to say was true, unlike me and you. Now I see. I am free. I am me. I am Catgirl. Ultimately, be you. Always stay true. Do what you want to do, because every day is made new. If you want to read more, visit the link in the description. Meow at you later.
Music by Erica R. from Pixar Bay.
By Tim Parsons. The narrator is Kate Barton. Director and producer, Darren Street. Tim Parsons would like to thank family and friends for their support with the paramedic Chris venture. The series is dedicated to the memory of his father, Reverend David Parsons. Copyright Tim Parsons 2020, all rights reserved. Unauthorized use, copying or sharing of this audiobook is strictly prohibited. This has been a Voice Reel studio production for Tim Parsons.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I've just been listening to the Paramedic Chris children's books on audio again, and I just love it because they've given a tribute in one of them to my dad as well, who passed away a few years ago. I love audio books, and it's great to walk around, and it's great to sit at the computer, if you're out jogging or wherever, to listen to them as well. All 4 of the Paramedic Chris children's books are available on audio book from Amazon. Go and take a listen to them. You won't be disappointed. You'll hear what happens when a community pulls together and supports one another. The best thing is to pop over to my website, paramedicchriskidsbooks.org, and you'll see the links on the shop page. Keep safe, everyone, and thank you for being you.
The Journey podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.